four-time Emmy-nominated producer Frank Pace,
and retired New York City firefighter, 9/11 first responder, and Vietnam vet, Billy O'Connor. Brought to you by We Can Coffee Company, manufacturer of freshly roasted premium coffee blends delivered directly to your door.
This week's guest, multi-talented actress, singer, and author, Adrienne Barbeau.
My brother
Frank, how are you today, pal?
Good. How was your Labor Day?
Yeah, it wasn't laborious, I can tell you that. It's been a long time since I've done any manual labor to Mexico.
Well, we had a great show last week with Richie, and I want to thank him for being with us and for all the things he did as first responders to 9/11.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Frank. And it's kind of overwhelming for us because, and this sounds kind of unassuming, I guess, but the guys really look at it like it's just their job, man. It's their job. They don't look at it like they're heroes. They don't look at anything at all like that. It's just what they do. 90% of it, I got to tell you, is routine. Every now and then something happens, and you get you separate the wheat from the chaff.
Yep.
Because you see what guys are capable of.
Well, separating the wheat from the chaff will be our guest today, Adrienne Barbeau, actress, singer, author. She's going to be a terrific interview, and I can't wait to ask her about Cannonball Run and Grease and everything she's done in her magnificent career, which now
diverse,
magnificent career.
Unbelievable. When
Author.
I started doing research on her, I was just astonished. I'm delighted you were able to get her. I mean, it's just a real find for a Mikamukin of my career to get her out. To the millions of people that are watching it out there, I mean, she's really quite a coup for you, Frank.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I've known her for a long time.
Where do you know her from?
Well, we're going to get it. I'm going to ask her if she remembers the first time we met. So
it was probably love at first sight, Frank. She took one look at you and melted.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So she'll be our guest. We'll bring her on shortly.
I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
Your favorite movie of hers, if you could recall, like what was most impactful for you?
Oh, Cannonball Run. Cannonball Run for sure. I think Billy will say Back to School or The Fog, but I think Cannonball Run for me was terrific.
Well, again, it's all so subjective.
Of course.
Entertainment is so subjective.
When you say, what was your favorite movie?
Yeah, that's subjective. I got it.
Thanks, Frank.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
That makes a lot of sense.
I got it. But yeah, I would definitely say Back to School because of being a comic,
Being Mrs. Rodney Dangerfield.
Yes, playing Mrs. That's got to be a task in itself, playing Mrs. Rodney anything.
I mean, she's worked alongside the biggest.
Yeah, well, we'll find out. Our audience will find out when we're interviewing, they get to see how diverse she really was. Because I guess she has a tendency to be pigeonholed.
As a everyman, because she's done every role possible.
Yeah.
I don't think she's going to be pigeonholed. She could, maybe a horror show person, but she's way more than. I mean,
yeah, way more than
both of our favorite movies are comedies.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Exactly.
So yeah, she's gonna be a hoot. It's gonna be great to interview her.
So what else you want to talk about?
I don't know. I tell you what, man, I'm hitting the ball good. I'm hitting the golf ball good.
You think anybody cares?
Yeah, everybody's concerned about.
You think
golf
anybody cares?
Hey,
has it snowed yet up there?
Never mind.
September
never mind
now.
my golf game.
It's September now. Is it snowed
my
there?
stock tips is what you really want.
Yeah.
Never mind my golf game.
How is your stock doing?
Yeah. You all laughed. They all laughed at Christopher Columbus. Cardano up 140% since I talked about it last month. 140%. That means I took $50 and turned it into $100.
40%.
There's no stopping me now, Frank.
$50 turned it into $100, up 40%.
Up 140.
140%.
So I turned it into 120, actually.
Yeah,
No, but I didn't put $50 into it. I'm getting that operation I had my eye on now, Frank. Remember I always told you I was trying to get in touch with my inner woman? Well, I already got the breasts. I'm going all the way now. I'm making a change, Frank.
You better make a change quickly.
I told my ex-girlfriend that one day. I said, I'm thinking about getting in touch with my inner woman, which is your inner woman, your inner woman. She goes, where is that exactly? In the bottom of a cave-in, in a vault, underneath an earthquake? Your inner woman? But I'm getting sensitive, Frank. Remember how insensitive I used to be? I'm better now.
Mm-hmm. You're better now, okay? You're better now, okay?
I'm getting very woke, Frank. I'm woke, I tell you.
Boy.
So football season has started. College football season has started. NFL has started. You don't have any? You have any overseeing or overview of the season?
I'll tell you the truth. I'm going to pick my pick every week and then bet on yours.
That's always a good plan.
I'm going to do the research and then bet on your pick. You were hot last year, man. You were hot.
I was hot last year, but you know what that means.
Yeah, I know exactly what it means.
That means don't bet the way I bet, because I'm bound to go south, as you would say.
Well, you like to chalk a lot of times, and I'm a dog guy all the way. I always take the dogs. I always take the points. You know why? Because I got the sneaky suspicion that nothing's on the level. You know?
Yeah, you got a good suspicion is correct.
So I usually have to take the points, because especially if something looks too good. You know, if they say New York Yankees are playing the St. Mary's Home for the Blind, and the game opened up and the Yankees are 180 to win 100, and it drops to 110, I want to know why. I want St. Mary's Home for the Blind now. You know. Well,
speaking of looking too good, that's a good segue to our next guest, Adrienne Barbeau. But before we bring Adrienne Barbeau in, I'd like to say a word about Weekend Coffee and weekendcoffee.com. They order premium blends and deliver right to your door. And even better than that, or as good as that, they deliver one bag free for every 10 you buy to a first responder or a first responder.
Yeah, that's terrific. They give buybacks. Every 10 that they send one to a first responder or to a vet's house. And that's terrific, I think.
Great. So with that, let's bring on Adrienne. There she is. How are you, Adrienne?
I'm okay. I'm okay.
There's my partner, Billy O'Connor, and my other partner, Derek Harris.
Nice to meet you both.
Thank you so much for coming on, Adrienne. It's a real honor. Appreciate it.
Well,
anything for Frank.
Wow.
You know,
can you tell me where we first met? I know one of the two places.
No.
One of the two places. It was
maybe it was head of the class.
No.
Or did it go back before then?
Yes, it was either the racquetball tournament that you played against Kathy Lee Crosby in '78 in Huntington Beach, or it was when you attended the Echelon sales meeting in San Diego. You don't even remember that, do you?
I have no recollection.
You and John showed up. And I was amazed. Yeah, John Carpenter.
John Carpenter?
Yes, and you brought him with you. And we had a sales meeting of the Echelon National Sales Force at my boss, Bob Phillips's house. And you were so kind to come down, because we were giving you racquetball rackets and we're doing promotion with you, because there weren't a lot of celebrities playing racquetball at the time. And, you know, two of them were Adrienne and Kathy Lee Crosby. So we made the most of it.
You know, I still have those rackets.
Wait, what happened?
I think they're out in my pool shed.
So
probably eaten away by rats, but I still have the rackets.
Sure. So how did you get started in show business?
Oh my gosh. I started I was working in a beauty salon. I was 15. When I was in 5th grade, my mother started me taking voice lessons because somebody told her I could sing. When I was 3 years old, she started me taking ballet, which I ended up hating, but because I think she thought every little girl should take ballet in those days. But when I was 15, I was working at a beauty salon, taking appointments, after school and on the weekends. And
were you a beauty school dropout?
No, I was not. And one at the salon was on the board of directors for, if I say the local community theater, it doesn't do it justice. It was called the San Jose Civic Light Opera, and they were a multi-million-dollar organization even then. And we're chatting, and what are you doing? Oh, we're doing The King and I, and we're having auditions. And my boss said, well, Adrienne sings. So suddenly I was auditioning for my first musical on stage, and they hired me, and I started working with the San Jose Civic Light Opera. And then we had a musical review under the same auspices of the Civic Light Opera. We applied to the State Department, and a week after I graduated high school, in those days was known as the Orient, I went to Southeast Asia. I ended up entertaining our armed forces for 3 months in South Korea. We were right on the DMZ. We were in Hokkaido. We were in Japan. We were all over Japan. We were in the Philippines. We ended up at an atomic testing center called Johnston Island, where they'd never had women. We we landed and did our show and left the same day. But that was my first paying job. We got $7 a day from the State Department. And I did that for 3 months, came back and started college. And I had never watched television. I'd been doing theater since I was 15. We rarely went to the movies. But my mother was a big musical comedy fan. And I guess I thought that I would get my degree and teach college, because I didn't know you could earn a living as an actor. I mean, I didn't know that was a real career, So I started work. I started college, and then I did a show again for the Civic Light Opera with a woman who had been in New York, and she had been in an off-Broadway show. And she said, you should go to New York. I mean, even if you just want to study, that's where all the good teachers are and the good. And I thought, oh, okay, that's what I'll do. So I packed my bags and the $1,000 that I'd saved working at the beauty salon. Oh, by that time I was working for a termite control, so I was making. And I went to New York, and I thought, well, if nothing happens by the time I'm 25, I'll go back to college and get my degree, and I'll teach. And by the time I was 25, I was on Broadway, and I was in the union, and one thing led to another, and that's led to the rest of the career.
That must have taken incredible courage for a single woman in her 20s to move across country and to New York, no less.
Frank, looking back, I can say, wow, I mean, I don't know if I'd right now at this age want to move all the way across the country and start all over again. But at the time, it just was, well, this is what I'm supposed to do, so I'll do it. I don't remember having any. I really don't. It sounds sort of silly, but I don't remember having any anxiety or any fear. I didn't know anybody there, which turned out to be a problem when the bank deposited the $1,000 that I'd sent to myself in someone else's account, and I suddenly had no money to pay for the Y, But I don't know. At the time, it didn't. It was just like, well, this is what you're supposed to do, so you do it.
So and I did it. You were in the car as a Fiddler on a Roof. Then you were in Fiddler. You got an elevation in Fiddler on a Roof. You played opposite Bette Midler.
Yes, and I was Kevin's daughter, Huddle. Yeah,
Huddle, along with Bette, and she must have been singing at the time in little clubs.
She started while we were doing Fiddler. She started going off to the baths, the continental baths, and there was the African Room, I think it was called. There was another little club, and she started doing her act. And she'd come into our dressing room every night with new clothes that she'd found in the thrift stores down in the village, because her act was sort of leaning toward the 40s. And I always thought, I didn't quite understand what she was doing or what she was wearing, but there was no question in my mind that she would be an enormous, enormous star because she was so brilliant on stage.
Wow.
When I first went in Fiddler, I had to sit out in the house for the 2 weeks while I was rehearsing. And so I watched the show. And every night the scene came when Bet had to beg Papa to let her marry Matilda Taylor and not Laser Wolf. And every night I wept. She was she was brilliant.
Not just her voice, just her presence on stage was
her acting. Yeah. She was brilliant. She was brilliant. You know, the voice. I mean, come on, Fiddler on the Roof. You don't know it's going to be that voice eventually. She was singing these songs, and she was singing them great. But what really caught me watching her in those early days was her acting.
Yeah, she's a brilliant actress.
Yeah.
And she's remained a brilliant actress. I worked with her in 2018 when she did Murphy Brown for us in New York.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's funny. My brother came up from New York because he was such a fanboy of Bette Midler, and I put him as an extra in the scene sitting next to Bette. So he'll never forget
forever
that.
Grateful.
Forever.
He'll talk about that forever.
Yes, he will. So that led you to Grease. How did you get Grease?
They just called me in for an audition. Actually, a meeting. This is very clear in my mind now because I just finished co-writing a book about Grease and about it's a collection of stories and memories from all the actors who appeared in the Broadway production and in the national company and the bus and truck companies.
And what's the title of that book? And when will it be out?
It will be called Grease, Tell Me More, Tell Me More.
Right.
And it will be released by Chicago Review Press next summer, a little after the 50th anniversary, because we opened on Valentine's Day of 72. But and we're donating most of the proceeds to the Actors Fund. So these stories are fresh in my mind. Although I don't remember how I got the actual audition, the initial audition was just meeting with the director, during which time he asked me who my favorite groups were from the 50s and 60s. And that was my music. So, I spouted off Johnny and Joe and the Drifters and the Platters and the Shirelles and you name it. I was spouting it off. And he told me later, much later, that he didn't know very much about the music of the 50s and 60s. He was just looking to see if people were being honest. So they called me in for an audition, and I auditioned. And I think I auditioned maybe twice, and then it was Christmas vacation. And I left New York to come to LA to celebrate the holidays with my boyfriend. And then they called me and said, well, we'd like to see you for a different role. Can you come back and audition? And I said, no, I'm in California. And in those days, nobody had money to pay for a new ticket, and it's the holidays. And no, I'm sorry. And I thought, oh, well, there goes that. So they called me a couple of days later and they said, look, if we postpone the audition until New Year's Eve day, could you come back? And I thought, you know what? If you don't want to be unemployed the rest of your life, you better get back there. So I went back. I auditioned for them on about 11 o'clock on the 31st, and they hired me about 4 o'clock that afternoon, and we started rehearsals 4 days later.
Who was the director of Grease?
Tom Moore.
I remember that because Tom Moore directed several episodes of Suddenly Susan.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
And I was producing Suddenly Susan at the time, and I was amazed because, you guys were so young. You guys were in your 20s. But my guess was Tom Moore was in his 20s also.
I think, if I remember what we just wrote, I think he was 27 when they hired him.
Wow.
Yeah.
27 years old, directing on Broadway, 25 years old, starring on Broadway. It doesn't get any better. It doesn't get any better than that. It doesn't get any better than that. How long did you play Rizzo?
Well, not as long as I would have liked, now that I've read all these other stories and realized what an incredible experience it was for so many people. But I got a call we opened in February, and I think I got a call in maybe May to go in and meet Norman Lear. I had been nominated for a Tony for the show, for Rizzo, and the reviews had been very complimentary. And I'm not sure if Norman came to see the show or if he sent his casting director, Jane Murray, but they thought I might be right to replace the actress that they had used for the pilot of Maude, playing Maude's daughter. She, I think, didn't want to relocate. They were filming in LA. She was in New York. And so they were looking to try to replace her. So I went in and met with Norman. But I got word back that I looked too young to play the mother of a 7-year-old, which is what the character had been established as. So I thought, well, that's it, back to Greece. Who could complain? And then about a month later, my agent showed up and he said, I never had an agent until after I got the Tony, but yeah. He said they want you in LA to audition for the show on Monday. This was Saturday. And I am forever grateful to Ken Waisman and Maxine Fox, who were the producers of the show, who said, well, if your understudy can go on for you, you can fly out there. And so I flew out, auditioned on Tuesday, and they hired me that following Friday at midnight. And I started 2 weeks later, and I've been in LA ever since.
And you had a 6-year run on Maude?
6 years, yeah. We were still in the top 20. I don't think we were in the top 10. But B was going through a divorce. She wanted to leave the show, and the show was really still very successful. She didn't want to see it wind down. And so we did 6 years.
And you remained friends with B for the rest of her life?
Oh, yes. I loved her.
Why don't you tell us a little about B?
All of them. Conrad Bain was like my surrogate father, and it was a great family. It was a great experience that I took for granted at the time, never having done television, never having worked for someone like Norman, never having been able to say those. And I didn't realize until later that not every television set was as fantastic as Maude was. But B was, and it all stemmed from B. It stemmed from B, it stemmed from Norman, it stemmed from our director, Hal Cooper, but it really came from B. She was just fantastic to work with. She was the most giving, professional, unassuming, I think you would say, star who cared only about making the show better. It was never about B, We'd be sitting around reading the script for the following week so that the writers could go off and touch it up and know what worked and what didn't work. And B would be the first one to say, this joke would be funnier if Adie said it or if Conrad said it. She was so giving. And if a guest artist came in, she was the first one up to the table to go and greet them and bring them back and introduce them to everyone else. She was just fantastic.
Well, Billy and I both have our favorite Adrienne Barbeau movies. So, Billy, why don't you ask? Why don't you ask?
Well, I guess the Adrienne Barbeau movie that I loved. I dabbled in stand-up comedy at a very late age. I was like 60 years old, 60 when I started doing stand-up. So naturally, I have an affinity to Rodney Dangerfield. Plus, I'm from New York, so Rodney, of course, and Sam Kinison. And I got to ask you what it was like working with those two screwballs in Back to School.
Well, I didn't have any scenes with Sam, but Rodney. my favorite story is that I showed up the first day of shooting, and Rodney had his trailer on the set, and there was this line of women, from the trailer door out to the street. And I said to the producer, "What's going on? Hey, he's a big sex symbol, Adrienne. They're all here because they want to see him. Rodney? Okay, all right.
I don't recall seeing any posters of Rodney. Any posters?
No, you don't see those. And then I always said that the director, Alan Metter, should have had an Academy Award just because he was able to get Rodney to stand still and deliver the lines that were on the page and not take off into his nightclub act, which was very funny. But Alan was constantly saying, Rodney, that's great. That's great. I don't think it works in this scene. You know? But he was a sweetheart. What a great man.
Oh,
and I don't know if you know, but after Rodney passed, his wife, they set up there is, and I'm not quite sure what it's called, but there is a school of comedy at the LA City College under Rodney's name. He, I don't know what the terms are, donated an enormous amount of money to establish classes there for comedians, for stand-up, for writers, and I think that was about 4 years ago that we had the event announcing it.
Wow.
That's great to hear that he was a philanthropic guy.
And he had his club in Manhattan, Dangerfields.
Yeah.
He was very, very supportive of young comics. Very supportive.
Yes.
Well, he gave Kinnison his breakup.
Yeah, he did. I think he discovered him or found him or became aware of him at Dangerfields.
Yeah.
Well, my favorite, of course, is Cannonball Run. I mean, I'm going to go down and ask you about every one of them, starting with Burt Reynolds.
You obviously haven't read my memoir, right?
Well, I guess not.
Or you wouldn't be, you might not be asking these questions. Well, what about Burt Reynolds? Well, for the real story, you do need to read my memoir.
And I will read it.
There are worse things I could do, because that's the real story of my romance with Burt and how he brought it to an end. But Burt Reynolds on the set of Cannonball, well, I had a different experience than most people who did that film. It was early in my career, and I wanted to be a good actor. I think the sort of prevailing thought on the set was, we can do anything we want. The audience isn't going to care. I mean, as long as we think it's funny, blah, blah, blah. So if you look at the outtakes at the end of the movie, and you see Burt slapping Dom, who was one of the all-time loves that I've ever worked with in my career, just a wonderful, wonderful man. But you see Burt slapping Dom and everybody else thinking that's very funny. And you look at my face, you'll sort of see what I thought about the whole thing.
Yeah. And how about Sammy?
Sammy, I knew Sammy. Actually, Sammy and Altavis and my boyfriend and I had on a game show called Tattletales. And Sammy cheated. I never forgave him for that. He cheated. But I knew Sammy, and Sammy was fine. Dean was a sweetheart. Unfortunately, he never said a word that was on the script. Unfortunately for me, because in my scenes with him, it was like, is that my cue? Have you finished talking? Shall I say my line now? But he was so funny and so delightful that it really didn't matter.
Of course, I was referring to Sammy Davis Jr., which you know, but our audience probably would not.
Oh yes,
would not know.
yes, sorry.
Sammy Davis.
Sammy Davis Jr. Yeah. And Dean Martin was the other
Dean
one.
Martin.
Wow.
And Don DeLuise, who I love dearly.
So, Billy.
Yeah, that's remarkable. I got to. I don't want to take you away from the movies, but when you talk about your books and your autobiography, there are worse things I can do. You've written 4 books now.
I've written 4. Well, I'm just finishing. Or the 5th one was a co-authorship thing, but yeah, I wrote the memoir, which happened in a very odd way, and to really encapsulate it, I felt like I got a message from my closest friend who had passed from breast cancer. But something happened that made me feel like she was telling me that I needed to take a writing class. I've never written before in my life, except to keep a journal for myself, and it never crossed my mind that I would be writing. But because of this sort of psychic or metaphysical experience, I started taking a writing class. And out of that grew all of these stories. And the teacher said, you better get an agent because I think you've got a book here. And so I got an agent and I got a book. And when that book came out, I was approached by another author, an Irish author living in Ireland, who had written a lot of supernatural and horror and things like that. And he said, you should write a book for your horror fan base. And I thought, I'm not sure I could. I don't know how to plot it, I mean, the memoir, I knew all those stories. He said, I'll help you. So we wrote the first one together, based it on what I wanted to base it on. She's a 450-year-old Armenian vampire who happens to be a scream queen and the head of a small production studio.
This is Vampires of Hollywood?
This is Vampires of Hollywood, yes. Okay. And we sold it, and she's the head of a clan of vampires, of A-list Hollywood actors. She's got Orson Welles and Mary Pickford and Robert Downey Jr. and Charlie Chaplin, and they're all part of her clan. And somebody's killing them off. So it becomes a detective story. The vampire and the hunky Beverly Hills detective trying to find out who's killing off. The detective doesn't know they're vampires, but she does. Anyway, that was Vampires of Hollywood. And we sold that, and we sold 2. And when time came to write the sequel, my co-author was busy doing other things. So I wrote the sequel, and then I wrote the 3rd in the trilogy, and that ended Vampires of Hollywood. However, I was then approached to co-write a screenplay and to try and get that produced. And at this point, we've just finished a pilot script, which we may be shopping, and it could happen or it could not happen. But I think maybe there's something there. Everybody who's read it thought, this could be a fun series, So that's Vampires of Hollywood.
It wouldn't surprise me if it went, why not add screenwriter to your credits?
Never in my life. And I always said, I can't write a screenplay. I don't understand that form at all. I don't understand it. It's like when people say, well, do you want to direct? No, I don't understand that. I don't know. Now, of course, I realize, well, I could probably get the performances out of the actors that I wanted, but technically and all of that, I'm not.
Well,
but I write a screenplay, so who knows?
Well, during the 80s, you were sort of got typed, I don't want to say typed, as a scream queen because you were doing a lot of horror movies. How did that come about?
It came about because of my relationship with John Carpenter. John, having seen me in Maud and having been attracted to the Howard Hicks woman for his characters, the woman who, like Katharine Hepburn and Lauren Bacall, could be sort of ballsy and witty, maybe, hopefully funny, and who was not a victim necessarily, offered me a role in his first television film called Someone's Watching Me. And I played actually a TV thing. and doing Someone's Watching Me, and then we became romantically involved, and then he wrote The Fog and wrote the character of Stevie Wayne for me, or with me in mind, and then asked me to do it. And at first I thought, well, I mean, this is not socially significant. This is, this is a horror film. I've never seen a horror film in my life. I've never seen Psycho. I don't like horror film. I don't like to be scared. But I love the role, and I love John, and I said, sure, let's do it. And so I think it was, and in those days, this would have been 1979, late 1978, early 1979. If you were on a TV show, you could not get seen for film.
Correct.
The producers were, no way, we're not going to hire somebody that people can see for free every Tuesday night. They're not going to go to the movies to see that, So John offered me my first feature. And yes, definitely, let me do this. And let me do it with, a fantastic film director. And then from then, I think, in part because of my relationship with John, we married and had a child. And in part because my first film was a horror film, The Fog. That's how people started to see me. I've done many, many things before and since, but I do have that caption as a scream queen, and here it is how many years later, and thank God for that, because horror has, there's an entire community that is stronger probably than any other film going audience,
Yep.
And
Let me just elaborate on something
incredible.
that Adrienne just said, and you shook your head emphatically, yes. That's so counterintuitive to me. It seems like if you were a television star, they'd want to put you in movies because you'd be a draw.
Not then. It was
in
only
the 70s and 80s. Didn't really.
It was Johnny Travolta who really sort of started turning that around. He was on Back to School Cotter.
Back to Cotter. Welcome back, Cotter.
Welcome back, Cotter.
Welcome back, Cotter. And then Saturday Night Fever, but he was one of the first that I can think of. Can you think of anybody else, Frank, in those days?
Not really.
No.
Not really. They were all either a movie star, a TV star, or a Broadway star, because Broadway stars really wouldn't come out to do Hollywood because they thought it was beneath them.
Yeah.
Well,
and TV stars weren't getting offered,
Yep.
And
that's correct. That's correct. So then our show is sort of becoming 7 degrees of separation from Kurt Russell, because Stephen Lang worked with Kurt Russell, Rob Nelson,
Bing Russell
was Kurt's father, and you worked with Kurt in Escape from New York.
In Escape from New York, and in The Thing, although he didn't share any credit. But John originally worked with Kurt in Elvis, which, if your audience hasn't seen, they really should. He was brilliant.
Right, he was.
And that was a 4-hour miniseries in the days when they did miniseries. And it took the night when it was up against Gone with the Wind. And what was the other huge thing they threw it up against? But Elvis took the night. And so I was socially friends with Kurt and Susan, who was his wife at the time, because she had played Priscilla in Elvis. And so I knew Kurt going in. And so when time came to do Escape, it was Old Home Week.
So I tell you, Stephen Lang couldn't say enough about Kurt Russell. He just said the guy knows movies inside and out, top to bottom. Just you couldn't raved about him. I guess you had the same experience.
Yes, I mean, he was, as I said, even with Elvis. I mean, I had never seen any of his Disney films, but he's just great. He's just, at least I mean, I haven't seen Kurt for many years, but in those days, he was just to share this early, but he was just the greatest
You know, Adrienne,
man.
Adrienne, in doing research for the interview, I was astonished about how versatile you were, about how many different things you did in this business, to stay in this business, to stay alive. It's really remarkable to me. I had no idea. I know you made an album with folk music, you know, and I know, of course, you sang on Broadway. When you were with that opera company, were you actually singing opera as well?
No, it was light opera. It was musical.
So it was all musical comedy. And what do you prefer?
All musical.
What genre do you prefer? Do you prefer acting? Did you prefer Broadway? Did you prefer sitcoms? What is your favorite?
You know, in 2016, I did the Nash of Pippin, playing the role that Andrea Martin had originated on Broadway, where I am hanging 15 feet in the air, upside down on a trapeze, singing. I can't even remember the name of the song now, but singing the song that Pippin's grandmother sings. It was such a great role. And at my age, to be able to do a trapeze act and sing at the same time was just something I couldn't turn down. But in truth, and I always say it like this, I'm very practical. You know, I when I hear interviews with other actors and everyone speaks so intellectually and esoterically about their approach to their craft and everything, I realize maybe I don't know as much as everybody. But what it really comes down to for me, I'm a morning person. I wake up at 5:30 in the morning, whether I or not I have to. My energy is in the mornings. I love getting on a set at 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning. I don't mind sitting there all day, even if it's just to do 30 seconds worth of film. When time comes to go on stage at night, it's like, oh man, I'm going to have to take a nap this afternoon. It's hanging over my head. So my first choice is always the character. But if I had the choice of doing the same character on film or on stage, I'd probably choose film. Now, when you ask about sitcom, you know, again, it's all practical for me in many ways. First of all, I don't think a lot of them are very funny, so that eliminates that. But the form lends itself to being a mother. And it's great if you've got kids and you're raising kids and you can go to work at 10 in the morning and finish 4 days a week at 6, and then you've just got one long day when you're filming or something like that. That's the way we did mine, of course. So sitcoms do offer that kind of appeal. But I really like doing film, whether it's film for television or feature film. I'll tell you, one of my all-time favorite jobs was Ruthie in Carnival.
I was just gonna bring up Ruthie in Carnival because I love that show. I loved you as a snake charmer. You working with snakes. Why don't you tell us about it?
It was, you know, right from the get-go, it was just the best. I mean, I loved the script. I loved what it was about. I loved the metaphysical quality of it. I was 50, 51 when we did Carnival, somewhere in there. You know, maybe I was a little younger when we started it, but to be able to play a woman with that kind of sexuality, with that kind of uniqueness at that age when most women are being cast as the judge or the nurse or the lawyer, you know, I mean, it was a fantastic group of actors and writers. We filmed in Santa Clarita, and there were so many of us in the company that I never probably worked more than 3 days a week, maybe 4 days a week, but I could take the kids to school, go off and do my work. Sometimes I'd be finished by the time to pick them up. So on every level, It was just fantastic. But primarily, it was that character. I mean, she was just fascinating to me, and I loved her.
She was sexy, which you are. She was sort of like a horror lady with the snakes. It sort of combined everything you had become famous for earlier in your career.
Even my Armenian heritage, because I did all of those dances, the belly dances and everything, growing up at the weddings, And you know what? I don't think I've ever talked about this.
Yeah, that's remarkable.
As soon as I got the audition material, I just knew her. My grandparents, I spent all my summers on a very small grape farm in the Central Valley. So, and the fact that these people were, we were carny workers in the Dust Bowl, I just knew her. I knew exactly how she spoke. I just knew her. And I went in and auditioned. I knew that she had different hair than I had. And I had a wig that I had used in a movie called The Convent. It was long and straggly and had gray in it and everything. And so before the audition, I went to a hairdresser, not my hairdresser, but somebody who worked with wigs. And I said, could you put this on me and everything? This is for the audition. And she did, and I went to the audition. And I got there and I went in the bathroom, like lump on the top of my head where she had put the wig on wrong or something. I thought, oh my God. But I think this was after the audition, but I went into the audition and I just did it once, and we came out and the casting director said, that was great. That was great. And I said, really? You couldn't tell I was wearing a wig? Because that's all. He said, no, what are you talking about? I never had to go back. I never had to audition for them again. I didn't have to audition for the network. They just called several months later and made the offer. So it was really something, I don't know, there was just a connection there.
Yeah, so at whatever age you were, with 30 years experience at that time, you were still auditioning. How do you feel about the auditioning process? Because it can be mind-numbing for an actor.
Frank, we are still, or at least I am, still always auditioning. I just did an American Horror Story that has already dropped. I think it's already aired. But the good thing about the pandemic is that now we all do what they call self-tape. So that it's in the privacy of my own home, or if I go to a studio or something, and you've got some time to work on it, and you can look at it afterwards and say, okay, I'm comfortable with that, and send it off. It's never fun, but it's a little better when we can self-tape, because if you're walking into a casting director's office and you've got one shot and you blow the words or something, then it's like, oh, God, I was nervous, I blew the words, so I couldn't remember, whatever. So, but that's, it's part of the business. It's
part of the business. It's remarkable how much effort, obviously, you have to put into certain roles, every role, I imagine. With Carnival, you got a 3-year run, and we had Billy Van Zandt, your ex, on here. I got to meet him and interview him. And he had written a part for you as Judy Garland off Broadway. And I can't imagine the amount of preparation you must have put in to playing Garland. And it got a 3-month run. I mean, that must be so frustrating for an actress.
Well, we knew it was just going to be 3 months when we went in. We had booked it as a limited run. That was probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, because as huge a fan of Judy Garland's as Billy Van Zandt, I was not. I mean, not that I wasn't a fan. I had just never seen her. Yeah. I just never. I didn't grow up with her. I didn't know I'd never seen any of her movies. What was fascinating to me when I did start researching and watching all of her videos was what an incredible raconteur she was on the talk shows with Jack Parr and with all of the other interviewers. She could tell a story. I mean, she was funny, and when she was just telling her stories, and that was what I had no idea. You know,
she was definitely so much larger than life, and that was part of her charm. Besides the powerful voice, the fact that she was such an amazing storyteller, and the life that she had lived,
and the life she had lived, and what she had suffered.
I have a very, very personal question for you, and I hope I don't put this indelicately. I have a daughter, and I have two daughters. One daughter has two children. My other daughter is 38 years old, and she's been trying to have a child now for 5 years. And of course, because we had Billy on here, and you had your two twin sons at 51 years old, and I'm very concerned for my daughter. You know, now that she's getting up there, I'm saying, is pregnancy dangerous? Is it not dangerous? And you came through at 51, obviously unscathed. Were you nervous? I mean, is there a bigger danger? And this is a very personal question. So if you,
you know, again, it's like going to New York. I think maybe it's because I had very little imagination. You know? When they offered me the role to hang upside down from the trapeze with no net, I just didn't think about what could happen. In terms of my having the boys when I was 51, I knew I was healthy. I didn't feel like that would be a problem. I had 38. I mean, I was already, you know. I think you just maybe have to trust her to know everything that she needs to know to make those decisions. And so much I mean, there's been so much more medical advancement even since I had the boys. I just had a friend, a gay couple, who using his sperm and a surrogate, you know, an egg donor and a surrogate, just gave birth to a beautiful little boy that they asked me to be, you know, sort of the godmother of. But he was telling me that at his point, at the point, that he was able to even know any of the fertilized eggs if they had any kind of genetic problems or any, you know, which even when I had the boys, I mean, they did an amniocentesis and they could tell a couple of things, but that was already farther into the pregnancy. Now, before they even implant the egg, they can tell you the sex and if there's any chromosomal problems. So hopefully she's in good hands and
well, thank you so much.
Wonderful.
And your humor obviously shone through when you said that you were the only person in the maternity ward that belonged to AARP.
Yes.
I thought that was very comforting.
And your three boys have all done exceptionally well. Cody's a musician, William's a music producer, and Walker's in fashion. Is that correct?
All of them. Walker just graduated from the Fashion Institute. He graduated on Monday. On a Tuesday, he went in for a job interview. On a Wednesday, he started work with a $3,000 signing bonus. He is absolutely loving it. He is a production manager for three of his favorite brands and one brand that is very unique. And he's just loving it. And William one of his tunes that he produced just went platinum. He's already got one that went gold.
Wow.
And of course, Cody.
Who's he producing for? Because Derek will want to know this.
This is the hard part. This is okay. Well, Ty Dolla $ign. I know he produced for Ty Dolla $ign.
Great.
Ray, I always get her last name wrong. Ray Imai, I believe. And I'm even on that album.
You're on the album?
Right. W. Melly.
Oh, yes. Yes.
You know,
That's the one I couldn't remember.
and let's see. What are,
That's good enough. You remember 3 of them.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I remember 3, but I'm not a really good mother, I must say. You know, because I keep asking him, send me the entire list, and I meet them all because he used to have his studios here at the house. But there's so many of them, and they all sound fantastic. And so trying to memorize all of the names.
And Cody's a musician, writing.
Cody is a composer. He is a musician.
Yes.
But he is a composer. He has his own following for his own CDs, but he also works with his dad, John Carpenter. They scored the last Halloween movie. They scored the Halloween movie that is coming out in another month. They are just now starting work on another feature, and then they will be scoring the final in the Halloween trilogy. They did a world tour about 3 years ago of called John Carpenter's Lost Themes. I'm sorry, John Carpenter's Lost Themes, of all of the the movie music that John had scored. And Cody is John's synth player, and they work in tandem. But he also has his own. He does. I guess you'd call it synth music. I guess it's electro synth. Again, you know, once we lost Loggins and Messina, I was like, what is this one called?
Well, it must be immensely gratifying to you as a parent to see so well in their chosen profession.
What is gratifying to me is that they all are really happy. Cody will be more joyful because Cody's other career, Cody is a Japanese linguist.
Right.
And he translates, you know, for Japanese companies that need things in English and everything. And his real heart is in Japan. So he is waiting, hopefully, for Japan to open up again so that he can go back and live there and just come back here and do the music with his dad or whatever he needs to do. But what really makes me, you know, I don't care if they're making dollars, as what they love to do, and they can take care of themselves doing what they love to do.
Like their mom.
Yeah, I'm so proud of all 3 of them. They're really, and they're good people. You know.
That's really.
Are you still living in the house off Mulholland?
Still am. We
went over there when the earthquake struck. Do you remember the house was in shambles?
Yes, and we added on after that. You know, we added on another whole wing. But yeah, we had. But there were books down.
There were books down. The fireplace had collapsed.
We had $260,000 worth of damage. And then my business manager called and said, you know, you don't have earthquake insurance. Oh, yes, I do. And it turned out that someone had fraudulently signed my name incorrectly, because I have a very sort of odd signature, and had tried to sell my business manager the fact that I didn't need earthquake insurance, so it was going to be cheaper for me. So for about 3 months, we were waiting for the insurance company to finally agree that, yes, this had been fraud, and yes, they were paying, but we had a lot of damage.
Yeah, it was incredible damage.
What year was that, you guys?
1994.
94.
Martin Luther King's birthday.
And what was that, a 4 or 5 or what?
7?
Oh, no, it was a 7 something, yeah. And my favorite image was of Cody because we ended up sleeping out on the lawn for the next couple of nights because of the aftershocks. But I said to Cody, who was only 10 at the time, I said, honey, if there's anything you're worried about in your room, don't want to break or anything, bring it down and let's take it outside and we'll protect it out there. And I looked up and there he was coming down the stairs with a huge stack of video games. CDs, video games.
Well, I've yet to live through one of them. I'm not too anxious about it. I'm only out
you haven't been through a big one yet,
huh? No, I'm only out here. I've been through 30 hurricanes, tons of hurricanes. Florida, tons of them. But I'm not too, I'm right on top of the San Andreas Fault, as a matter of fact. You mentioned Dom DeLuise before.
It figures.
Dom DeLuise used to live at Pine Mountain Club. He used to live, he had a place up there.
Did he?
And we're right on top of the San Andreas Fault. So it's just a matter of time. I know it's coming.
And it's gonna when the San Andreas Fault splits, you'll be the first guy to fall in.
Without a doubt. I might dive in, Frank. I might just swan dive in there.
Well, at least be glad you're not on the East Coast today with the hurricane coming.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
That's right.
Derek, you have any questions you want to ask Adrienne?
I had no idea. So that you're Armenian.
Oh yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you?
My grandparents came over. My grandmother came over in 1915. Yeah, she escaped the genocide. Yeah.
Do you happen to speak the language?
Kichma. Why? To kayak? Are you Armenian?
No, I'm not. I just have.
No.
And you mentioned. Go ahead.
I speak French, and I speak. I like to think I speak a little Japanese, and I speak enough Spanish to get through. Every time I've gone to study Armenian, well, the last time I went to study Armenian, the whole class was written in Armenian. And, if you can't read the writing, it was like, oh, I need to start again. And I'll get to it. I'll get to it before I'm done. I will get to it.
Remarkable. Unbelievable versatility. And now you want to learn Armenian, like you haven't done enough. But just take.
I would like to go out. I would like to go out knowing more than I know.
Tell me real quickly, Cody, you said he speaks Japanese fluently, and you speak a little Japanese. How did that come about? This.
I think with Cody, it was a combination of growing up with video games, and when he was in. Maybe when he was in junior high, he had a friend whose family had a family there, and they took him over for a 2-week vacation. But he didn't really get involved until his first year of college, when he took his first class in Japanese. He was going to college as a music composition major, and then he transferred to Occidental and graduated with a degree in Asian studies. He really relates to the culture and the people. He likes the structure. He just feels very comfortable there.
Wow.
And he had a great facility for learning the language. He speaks all forms of it: the business form, the formal form, the personal, informal form. And
do you think
he just loves it.
Do you think the seed for that was planted when he made the 2-week trip over?
I think it was a combination of that, and then because I asked him about it just the other day. I think games he used to watch. I can't remember what they were, but they were in Japanese.
Wow.
In those days, I don't know what they did.
Extraordinary accomplishment. Here I am still murdering the English language, I can't. I like to murder one language at a time, Frank.
Do you have any other final thoughts or questions?
No, I'm just delighted that you came on and you really graced the show with your presence.
Thank you very much.
And doing the research again, I'm just blown away by your versatility. And we talk often about other guests we've had about how in show business, especially, it's about staying alive to do what you love. And boy, if anybody illustrated that, it's you. So thank you for.
Thank you. I've been very fortunate, you know. I've been very fortunate. The one other thing that I because I think I like people to know about it, is when I'm not on a set or acting or writing a book or whatever, I do video captioning for the blind for TV and movies, so that if you if you are vision impaired, you hit your SAP channel on your TV, and as you're hearing your favorite TV series, you're hearing the actors speak. When they stop speaking, you will hear my voice or someone else's voice describing what's going on screen.
That's great.
That's remarkable.
So I really enjoy that, and I don't have to put on makeup. You know?
So can you tell us the name of the book again that's going to be out?
The book will be called Grease, Tell Me More, Tell Me More. And it won't be until next summer, but it's Chicago Review Press, and you know we're going to try and do as much promotion as we can. And I think we've got like 250 photographs that most people haven't seen, and then stories from everyone from Travolta to Treat Williams, Peter Gallagher, and Barry Bostwick, and all of the actors, Alan Paul from Manhattan Transfer, all of the actors who were in the original company and in the 8 companies that followed.
That's right. Go ahead.
Can I put you on the spot for a second? Can you describe what you see on screen? I'm going to put Frank on the screen right now.
Let me put my glasses on. Hold on.
Okay, Frank's on the screen. Can you describe him for me?
Well, I see with his headphones on and his golf shirt and looking very happy, and he's got his glasses on. Why, am I supposed to be seeing something behind him?
No, it was Dirk being a jerk. It was.
If you could just
I see Frank who doesn't look like he's changed at all since the last time I saw him, and probably the last time I saw you was Daddy Dearest. I don't know.
No, the last time you.
Oh no, you came to help the boys with their soccer.
Yes, but the last time I saw you was even beyond that. Was we were playing Campbell Hall in a soccer game, and you came strolling by the soccer field and gave me a kiss, and then headed off down the on your merry way.
Oh shoot! I don't remember that. I do remember.
And all the girls were saying, "Are you kidding?" All the girls.
I do remember you met us at Jerry's Deli.
Yep.
So you could talk to the boys because they were both. I guess they were we trying to decide whether they were going to join club soccer,
yes,
or we were trying to decide. It was club soccer. It was
yep.
club soccer. And then, of course, you know that William went on and played soccer for Brown. Yes. Wow. Yeah.
Derek's daughter played soccer at Northwestern. And that's
great.
That's how Derek and I met. I was coaching his daughter.
All right.
Well, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
It was a real pleasure.
It was a really terrific interview, and you're a great gal, and I'm so excited to have known you as long as I have known you, and our friendship has endured, and I'm really happy about that.
Thanks very much, Frank. Bye, guys.
Thank you, Adrienne. Thank you so much.
Well, Billy, we've done it again.
Well, yeah, I was impressed. I tell you that. She's a remarkable woman, just a remarkable woman. And that was really nice to hear that, what she does for the blind as well. I mean, and how many different things does this woman do? Does she ever sleep is the question.
Well, she gets up early in the morning. We know that.
She's a morning person. And she gave Frank a kiss. That was, all the girls said, "What's the deal here, Frank? You're going to kiss from Adrienne Barbeau."
Yep.
See, this producing thing has its perks.
Hey.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
Nice to be the king. It's nice to be the king.
Nice to be the king. Speaking of kings.
Yes, sir. This is some segue here. I don't know where this is going.
The royal family.
Yeah.
Who's the Fredo in that group?
Boy, I tell you what. He's smart. He's smart. He's not dumb like everybody.
Who's the Fredo in that group?
You know, I don't have much use for the royal family because I'm Irish.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's a great Irish writer, Brendan Behan, who spent a lot of time in his early days in a borstal, which is reform school.
Right.
But the British used to throw all the Irish miscreants in there, like anybody they didn't like, they tossed in there, especially for political. And Brendan Behan, as a great Irish writer, and he was one of our finest writers ever. I love his books. When he was leading the St. Patrick's Day parade, he got drunk, which was his wont. But there was one time he was going through London, and they had the Lord Mayor of London had a British flag on the side of his limousine. He said, "Get that filthy, disgusting scum of a rag off the side of my car." And that's the way us Irish feel about the Brits. And I don't have the royal family to me is royal nonsense. I don't have any love for them whatsoever.
Can you imagine that family? Who's not the Fredo? Yeah. I mean, right now, the Fredo of all Fredos is Prince Albert, who's caught up in that sex scandal with the guy who hung himself. What's his name?
Jeffrey Epstein.
Jeffrey Epstein.
Oh, and Bill Gates too.
And
Does anybody know who they are, really, the royal family? I mean, nobody knows what they're really all about. They're in constant seclusion. That series that they did on HBO, was that The Royals? That was pretty well done. I mean, but they showed you that.
Who are they?
Who the hell are they? Yeah,
Well,
I mean, what are they? Come on, Derek, chime in.
Diana's two boys seem to be pretty good, but their uncles are all crazy.
Charles looks like he's got an umbrella pulled up his ass. He's always looked like that. He always struck me as that.
Somebody's gonna knock on your door later.
Go ahead, let him knock. I don't like the Brits. I mean,
they got to find his door first.
Yeah,
although somebody posted a video of your neighborhood on Facebook.
Pretty nice, isn't it?
Yeah, but now you can't hide.
Yeah, I know, but I'm telling the truth, Magellan couldn't find that neighborhood. I could draw you a map, you won't be able to find it. I stumbled into that place. Yeah, but Charles is like, I mean, everything has got to be so proper. And, well, you know what? If I was getting the amount of money they were getting, I wouldn't want anybody to know about me either.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they got what a racket.
And the Queen's husband, rest in peace, he's a little.
You think he punched from the rough?
No, he didn't punch. I don't think he punched from the rough, but he was, not. He was no Michael Corleone himself.
Oh yeah, I got you. Well, you know what? I mean, here's the deal. When Ireland was suffering through the famine in the 1860s, I mean suffering, America in its benevolence tried to bail them out, and they sent boatloads of food to bail out the Irish. And the Brits stopped it in London and took half the food off and then sent it over again. Because the Irish problem was best solved if they were eliminated. That's the way the Brits eliminated a lot of their problems.
Yeah.
It's sort of, we were like the American Indian, the Native Americans over here.
Columbus discovered America.
Yeah, he discovered America. How do you discover a land that was already there?
People that were already there.
I'm not knocking the Italians, but only they could come up with a hero who got lost, didn't know where he was when he got there, and he's still a hero.
Revisionist history. Revisionist.
Yeah, the answer to your question is you tell the story.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, the history is written by the victors, and even more so today, it seems like. Because they can do it. They don't even have to wait to revisionize history. They revisionize the present.
Yep.
It's remarkable.
Yep.
But let's not get on a rant, Frank. We don't like to do that.
Let's not get on a rant. Forget all those people from Africa brought here on slave ships. Forget all those indigenous people.
Don't get me started.
Don't get him started. Don't get him started.
Well, it is what it is.
So you got any football news today?
I'm going to try and pick a winner, Frank. I'm going to go hit the books, and hopefully next time we have a show, we can go back to our picks, because I want your picks, Frank. You're the man. You're the guru. You're the guru. You were hot last year. Would you finish at 12-4 or
something like that?
And I was barely 500.
Barely is the operative term.
Yeah, but I mean, it's fun. I like the handicap. And not that I would ever put any money on it. Although Cardano.
Forget Cardano. Let's talk about our guest next week,
Yes, let's do that.
David Scott.
Wow.
Commander David Scott. Astronaut
Whoa.
on Apollo 15. Second man to walk in
Whoa.
space. First man to drive on the moon.
Geologist, scientist.
Swimmer. He went to the University of Michigan first on a swim scholarship, and then he transferred to West Point.
Just remarkable. I mean, to be able to talk to a guy who's looked out and saw the Earth. I mean,
Yeah, I've got a lot of questions for David. And he's a remarkable guy. He's 88 years old now. Sharp as a tack.
Really?
Sharp as a tack. So,
does that mean there's hope for me, Frank?
well, when you're 88, I'll let you know.
Because he's still going to be here.
I'll still be here.
But you got the deal.
I'll still
I know
be
you
here.
cut the deal. You got the 30-year deal with God.
Yeah,
I know you're good.
I got the 30-year
You signed
God.
a contract.
Yep.
You get, what is it, the back end? Is that the back end, Frank?
Yep, that's the back
real
end.
back end.
Before we go, I got a shout out to our sponsor, weekendcoffee.com, delivering premium blends right to your door. And like we talked about last week with 9/11, they do great things for veterans.
Yeah, veterans and first responders. So, yeah, thanks a lot, Weekend Coffee. And it's a damn good product besides. So, I can't recommend it enough.
With that, Derek, say goodnight.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, Frankie boy. Good night, Derek. Thanks for tuning in, people.
And
Appreciate
and
it.
thanks again to Adrienne Barbeau.
Oh,
Hey,
yeah, she
hey,
was
I want to say
amazing.
thank you to you guys. You guys are killing it in the views, by the way. Like
Oh, really?
it's like the show is just up. So many.
Where am I going to spend all this these
Quality time.
royalties?
Quality time.
This
Quality
keeps coming
time.
up. Pretty soon I'm going to buy a pair of socks.
Yeah.
Don't talk me out of it, Frank. I'm going to buy a pair of socks.
My friend Grant Rosenberg, who was on the show, he said, I'm going to order Lamar's Gamble. Where do you guys make the most money? I said, order it from amikamukanamike.com. We'll make $5 instead of $2.50.
Yeah, I'm springing for socks. That's
Yeah,
it, Derek.
springing
I'll
for
buy them
socks.
in your store so you get a kickback.
Perfect.
All right, that'll do it.
Take care, everybody.
Take care,
Thanks
everybody.
So much.
Thanks so much. See you next week.
Next week's guest, Commander of the Apollo 15, one of the 4 living astronauts to walk on the moon, Colonel David Scott.
We'll see you next week.